No matter how many you talk about, you can always talk about more. Welcome back to 5 recently released albums that you should check out. This is a series that examines a lot of the stuff that I wasn't able to get to over the weekend with full reviews and give them sort of their 15 seconds of fame, their moment in the sun, and at least get the names out there. So we have 5 full lengths and 2 EPs to talk about this episode, so let's stop pussyfooting around and let's get to the action. So our very first one is Maximalism, which is the brand new album from Amaranthe. Now, these guys are a female-fronted, but there's dueling vocals on here, sort of like hot metal sounding band in some distinctions, especially whenever you consider the single off of this album, which is that song. It almost sounds like this band's aiming to be on the next Now album. It's really kind of bizarre to think that these guys has a fierce metal faithful, but they have catchy melodies and everything does feel like it has a little bit of that commercial polish to it. Think of it as what would happen if baby metal intermixed with like Nightwish or something like that, or like Within Temptation, and they had this weird child that wanted to have its own identity and be both, you know, one and the other. You get a little bit of some heavy synths on a couple tracks, and then of course you also have some thicker, more growl-based vocals on the male side of things, whereas the female vocals are very ethereal. That's the best way that I could really give it. They're very well delivered, except for on that song. That's one of the weakest tracks on the album, probably one of the weakest tracks of the year. It sounds like they're trying to be Rachel Platten or some shit. If you don't know who that is, look it up, but then just read, don't listen. Overall, give this one a shot if you like the poppier side of metal. This is definitely one that seems like it's cruising for a little bit more radio airplay, radio attention. Maybe the album that gets this band to a wider audience. Albums weren't the only thing that were released this past weekend. There were a pair of EPs that you definitely need. Let's go ahead and get them out of the way early on here, as one of them is a pretty big name and the other one probably should be. Obituary, of course, released 10,000 Ways to Die this past weekend. This is an EP that has 2 brand new songs, Loathe and the title track, and then a lot of different live tracks that have been released from the band's most recent tour dates. And those live versions sound really, really good, I'm not gonna lie. Loathe and 10,000 Ways to Die, especially Loathe, has a little bit more of a doom register rather than a death metal register, which is kind of cool. It works out. There's not a lot of lyricism to really speak of. It's not that creative, but overall, kind of a nice jam. Buy it for the live stuff. But whenever it comes to Pallbearer, which their EP was entitled Fear and Fury, this is traditional doom, and you get 1 new track off of this, which was actually already released as a single, which is Fear and Fury. Buy this one for the 2 cover songs that come along with it. Over and Over, track number 2, is a Black Sabbath cover that is very well handled. I love how the guitar just really seems like it is aging along with the song itself as it goes along. But the cover of Love You to Death by Typo Negative by Pallbearer may go down as one of the best damn covers of 2016. And maybe, for some, may even be one of the best that they have ever heard. This is just absolutely incredible. Check these 2 EPs out. Destrage with A Means to No End. We're still collectively mourning that there's not going to be any new Dillinger Escape Plan material for a while, but this is a band that is a little newer that may satisfy your palate a little bit. This guy's, they have progressive metal, they have a little bit of gent, they have a little bit of mathcore that's definitely evident, and some alternative metal or, rock that's really thrust within their sound. It's kind of chaotic, it's definitely interesting, and that's what makes these guys a sort of an alluring product. They're based out of Italy, and this 13-track, 55-minute affair is definitely not short on variety. It has a lot of that to really showcase itself. The title track, which starts it off, is one that showcases a softer, more clean registered point of time for these guys. It's one that doesn't showcase the real divinity of their sound or diversity of it, so that's whenever you get into tracks such as Don't Stare at the Edge or Symphony of the Ego, which follow that title track in the playlist here. But then whenever you go a little bit deeper and you get into some tracks such as Peacefully Lost, and especially the final cut on this album, Abandoned to Random, is whenever you start to notice that they can blend that chaos with softer moments, really have those 2 intertwine and create and craft something that feels very complete, and it's almost like a middle ground between Dillinger Escape Plan and a little bit of Between the Buried and Me. Either that, or you could almost say it's something that feels on par with some of the tricks used for disassociation by the EP. I think these guys have a great future, so I think that you should get on board right now while you can, before all of your friends know about this band. That way you can be the one that tells your friends about Destrage and tells them about a means to no end to check this one out. Forgive me if I bastardize this, but Silhouetteless with their brand new album Drifting, this is a synth prog band, and that's at least what the band has dubbed themselves, so we're going to go with that. And this is very moody music, and that's probably because of the heavy synth that is involved. This is not always music that's going to jump right in. It's instead going to build a lot of atmosphere prior to getting into a lot of its ideas, letting the synths really awash the listener and give them a little bit of time to sort of prepare for what's about to come. Now, vocally speaking, we have very strong progressive voice, very strong clean. There is some dirty growls that you can hear, especially on the opening track, Dancer in the Sky, that has a lot of sort of girth and real oomph behind it, so it does give you a little bit of a feeling of power, but largely this is more of an emotional, moody journey, and this 8-track is one that typically has songs that are within the 6-minute range, with the longest one, the Writer's Power Go, being 9 minutes and 2 seconds, and really combining a lot of what this band's philosophy is all about. Having a long synth and, kind of emotionally driven passage to begin this, to move into some heavy progressive metal riffing right at the center point of the song, and then fading out and sort of combining the two elements together. Overall, this is strong material from a band that's once again another rising star and up-and-comer in this real situation, and should certainly be examined. And if you like something like this, I would also recommend it perhaps for Anathema fans. I think that you would also sort of dig what these guys are able to do, so check it out. I'll leave a link for their Bandcamp in the description box. Anagnorisis with Peripeteia. Now, the name of the album from this black metal band from Kentucky is essentially stating a big-time change, a reversal of fortune that happens to a character. It's especially well known within the literal narrative. This, along with their band name, are both Greek words that have been used for plays and for literature for centuries. And this is a black metal album that kind of showcases that same idea. This feels like a concept album that involves the young man that you see on the cover there, where you are hearing intermixed and interwoven within the thoughts of perhaps the older man, the man that this boy became, the sort of elements of his youth, speaking with a gentleman. Almost seems like it would be like a scientist or perhaps a counselor of some sort, talking about different events of life and stuff of that variety during some sort of interview. The whole thing takes on a very bizarre sort of transformation, and what's perhaps the most interesting about this is that after one of the longest tracks on this album, the nearly 12-minute long title track, Metamorphosis, the track that follows it, track 7, has a very sort of almost positive glow to it. Whenever you listen to it musically, it's more major chords as opposed to minors, and it just gives this a very different overall musical background or musical backbone. The register has a very different feel to it, and it's not something that you gain within a traditional black metal album all that often. It's usually reserved more so for the post-black metal or the black gaze stuff that has really emerged over the past few years. So this album is got a lot of disdain behind it. It's got a lot of hate behind it. The lyricism definitely has a lot of suggestion of depression, of perhaps thoughts of suicide, of feeling like the upbringing has not been the best, that there has been failure. And this is what makes it the surprise of the week. Because this is not your typical black metal album, and it's one that I feel has something that could be a little bit more personal and apply to a few more people, and they should scope out and take this journey, because it's not all the time one that's very comfortable, but musically speaking, it's very, very good. Our final examination today is Kadeth, which is the brand new album from Russia's Altar. Now, this band is actually more familiar to you than you might think if you're a member of the underground community, because they used to be known as Death Knife. And this is a band that plays post-black metal, whatever you want to call it. There's a little bit of black gaze in there, not very much, but it is similar to what they did prior under the Death Knife banner, only they've changed the name for reasons that you will have to tell me, because I actually don't know. This is a 6-track affair that logs in a little bit under, or a little bit over rather, the 47-minute mark, and what's interesting about it is that this has a bit of a sort of formula to it. You have a softer opening that then gets lodged within just fierce, just, almost deafening black metal that then descends once again into that sort of post-black metal, that black gaze instance, that more harmonious, softer moments, and then explodes once again until it sort of fades off into its finale. And this is something that you kind of gain throughout most of these tracks with the exception of the instrumentals. So the real benefit here is a track such as Azahoth, which is the second track on this disc, which just has a real power behind it, and it's one that really shines forward over most of the first half of this disc, and really over most of it in general until you get to the 15.5-minute long title track, which can seem like a bit of a harrowing journey. But this is one that has such a great opening to it, and really also has such great balance and sort of precision control whenever it comes to their display. It does become a little bit predictable based off of that idea, but the one thing that also can be stated is that it's not like it's happening every 2 minutes. This is instead a track that is able to traverse that sort of heavy, deafening, black metal venture for more like 5 or 6 prior to descending backward into the post-black metal, into the more black gaze, which then becomes your guide for the second half of this massive track. And it is truly a listen to behold. It is something else. These guys are pretty great. You might not know what happened to Death Knife. It's because they're no more. Ultar is now them, and they are the same people. So definitely check out Kadif. They've not gone away. In fact, you could love them even more under this name because this album's pretty darn good. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 full lengths and 2 EPs that you should have probably checked out this past weekend. If not, you should do that now before we get into this week, which is Testament Week, which is Ulcerate Week, which is Hellspirit Noir Week, which is Adonet Craft Week. It's a huge fucking week. Are there anything else that you are excited about for this coming week? The weekend of Halloween, and I can't even speak. By the end of these, my brain is just, oh man, it's like a stew in there, and it kind of doesn't look like it's very worth consuming. My name is CoverKillerNation. Let me know in the comments below what you're excited about for this week. I'll talk to you later.